Good morning, children. It's Thursday, 4th June 2020. Welcome to the next chapter of Street Child. Now, again, the resources that you will need for today's lesson are a pen and a sheet of paper. Now, our learning intention today is I can explain the differences between direct and indirect speech. Success criteria. I can identify direct and indirect speech in writing. I can recognize where inverted commas are needed to punctuate direct speech. I can change direct speech into indirect speech and vice versa. Chapter 23. Shrimps Again. Everything was growing familiar, yet everything was wrong. He was near the river, near the wharves and the warehouses, but the houses had gone. Everywhere he looked men were hammering and digging, lifting loads of rubble onto carts, heaving great planks of wood down to the river's edge. Skeletons of houses crumbled into piles of dust, and Rosie's cottage and the boat shed where he had first watched the river had gone. Okay, so we can see that Jim comes to London, but he cannot find Rosie's cottage, and there was some construction work going on there. Now read the remaining chapter silently in your mind. Okay, so you can see in the picture the plight of the Victorian children during those times, during the late 1800s and the beginning of 1900s. Now, here are a few guided reading questions. What do you think has happened to Shrimp? And why do you think Shrimp refuses to go to the hospital? How do we know that children were often ill and mistreated during the Victorian era? Which of the following sentences must end with a question mark? Does anyone know where I can find a doctor? I need a doctor. Shrimps desperately needed to visit a doctor. So, out of these three sentences, which one is a question and needs a question mark? Now, today we are going to learn direct and indirect speech, and we are going to find out the differences between direct and indirect speech. We have done this before, but this is just going to be a revision of what we have done in class. Using speech within writing. Within writing, there are two ways to narrate the words spoken by a character. These are called direct speech and indirect or reported speech. I bid you farewell, earthlings. In a direct speech sentence, we would narrate Iggy's spoken words like this. I bid you farewell, earthlings, shouted Iggy from his spaceship. Okay, so the words that Iggy says are in open inverted commas and close inverted commas. So this is called direct speech. I bid you farewell, earthlings, shouted Iggy from his spaceship. If we were writing an indirect speech sentence, we would narrate Iggy's spoken words like this. From his spaceship, Iggy bid farewell to the earthlings. So you can see, children, that the open inverted commas and the close inverted commas, they have vanished. So in indirect speech or reported speech, there are no open and close inverted commas. Okay, so from his spaceship, Iggy bid farewell to the earthlings. Okay, and even the first person I has it has vanished. So you never ever use first person in indirect speech. Using direct speech. Let's look carefully at the direct speech sentence. What do you notice? I bid you farewell, Earthlings, shouted Iggy from his spaceship. The exact words of the speaker are enclosed in inverted commas or speech marks. In direct speech, the exact words of the speaker are quoted with no change to their content or order. The correct punctuation is used before the inverted commas close. There is often a reporting clause to explain who said the speech. Sometimes the reporting clause can be extended with an adverb, subordinate clause, or prepositional phrase to explain more about how, where, or when the speech was said. The reporting clause can appear before or after the spoken words themselves. Using indirect speech. Now let's take a look at the indirect or reported speech sentence. How is it different to the direct speech sentence? From his spaceship, Iggy bid farewell to the Earthlings. Now, in indirect speech, there are no inverted commas. Speech marks are not used at all in indirect speech. The actual words of the speaker are often changed. The spoken words need to be in the correct tense. Extra words may need to be added and pronouns may need to be changed. Example, the I was changed to Iggy. Okay, so Iggy bid farewell to the Earthlings. There are no reporting clauses within indirect or reported speech. However, an adverb or a prepositional phrase to explain more about how, where, or when the speech was said can be added if needed. Are inverted commas needed? Look at these speech sentences. Are they examples of direct or indirect speech? If they are examples of direct speech, where should we place inverted commas? Kyla explained that she used to live in New York. This is an example of indirect speech and does not need inverted commas. The sentence is reporting what Kyla explained. Okay, so if Kyla would have said that I live in New York, if the sentence would have been I live in New York, said Kyla, then you need to have your inverted commas. But here it's indirect speech, so you don't need your inverted commas. Okay, are inverted commas needed? Look at these speech sentences. Are they examples of direct or indirect speech? And again, if they are examples of direct speech, where should we place the inverted commas? Watch out! Screamed George as he launched the frisbee. Now, what do you think? Is this a direct speech sentence or is it indirect speech? And if it's direct speech, then where will the inverted commas go? Okay, so this is an example of direct speech and does need inverted commas around the spoken words. Where should they go? So as you can see, watch out is actually the actual words that George used. So those need to have open and close inverted commas. Okay, are inverted commas needed? Look at these speech sentences. Are they examples of direct and indirect speech? And if it's direct speech, then where should we place inverted commas? Guthrum announced that they should charge towards to the village. Now, this is indirect speech and so it will not need inverted commas. The sentence is reporting what Guthrum announced. Now look at this sentence. Look at these speech sentences. Are they examples of direct or indirect speech? And again, if it's direct speech, then where will the inverted commas go? The doctor gently said, "Open your mouth as wide as possible." Now, this is an example of direct speech and does need inverted commas around the spoken words. Where should they go? Okay, So whatever words the doctor has used, so he has used the word, she has used the words, open your mouth as wide as possible. So those need to have open and close inverted commas. Okay, now your task now is that you're going to change the following passage from direct to indirect speech. Shrimps? Jim asked. He felt awkward and shy. It's skipping, Jim, remember? The boy didn't answer. Jim could hear the rasping of his breath. You all right? He could hardly see him except for the orange tufts of his hair sticking up above his white face. His fingers fluttered like pale moths, edging and fumbling as he pulled his sack towards his face. Jim knelt down and broke open an orange with his thumbs, squeezing the juice into Shrimp's mouth. When you're better, he said, we'll go around together like you said. So now here is a passage. You have to change the passage from direct to indirect speech. Okay, now remember, in indirect speech you don't need inverted commas. So the whole passage that you're going to write again, you're not going to use speech marks at all. You're not going to use open and close inverted commas. Okay, so try this. I know it's quite a difficult task, but try your best and then email to me all your answers and I will be marking it for you. Good luck with the task and see you tomorrow. Bye bye.